question that the chairman touched on. And it's of great importance, I think, because it goes to a woman's fundamental right to make the most personal decisions about their own body. And as a college student in the 1950s, I saw what happened to young women who became pregnant at a time when abortion was not legal in this country. I went to Stanford. I saw the trips to Mexico. I saw young women try to hurt themselves, and it was really deeply, deeply concerning. During her confirmation hearing before this committee in 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was asked several questions about her views on whether the Constitution protects a woman's right to abortion. She unequivocally confirmed her view that the Constitution protects a woman's right to abortion. And she explained it like this, and I quote, "The decision whether or not to bear a child is central to a woman's life, to her well-being and dignity. It's a decision she must make for herself. When government controls that decision for her, she is being treated as less than a fully adult human, responsible for her own choice," end quote. At one point, our former colleague, Orrin Hatch, then the ranking member of this committee, commended her for her being, quote, "very forthright in talking about that," end quote. So I hope, and you have been thus far, be equally forthright with your answers. In Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania versus Casey, Justice Scalia, as was said earlier, joined the dissent, which took the position, and I quote, "We believe that Roe was wrongly decided and that it can and should be overruled, consistent with our traditional approach to stare decisis in constitutional cases." Do you agree with Justice Scalia's view that Roe was wrongly decided?
Hey guys, welcome back to another today's video. And in this video, you may know that this is not a continuing my Fixing American Democracy series. I'm going to be taking a little bit of break from that series and now talking about a separate issue that's not about democracy and about fixing our elections and making them more democratic. But this is actually a separate issue on Roe v. Wade in general, about the arguments of pro-life and being about abortion, about the future of abortion and women's liberties in this country. I wanted to talk about this issue simply because after Senate Republicans confirmed President Trump's nominee Amy Coney Barrett to serve as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, that ultimately cemented a 6-3 originalist majority. Some Democrats have been talking about the fact that Roe v. Wade is going to get overturned and women's rights are completely in jeopardy. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about what Roe v. Wade is, which you may know is already abortion. But I'm also going to try to be taking more of a middle ground on this issue. And because there's some areas I do agree with conservatives on, in some areas I do agree with liberals on abortion. And I will also be listing all the pros and cons of Planned Parenthood, or in other words, Roe v. Wade. So let's begin, shall we? As you may know, Roe v. Wade was actually a landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court, in which the court ruled that the Constitution protects a pregnant woman's ability to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restrictions. And I believe it was a landmark decision. It was actually a 7-2 decision made by the U.S. Supreme Court, simply because they pointed to the 14th Amendment, that it was a woman's fundamental right to choose that they do have a right to choose what they can do with their own body. So let's state what the 14th Amendment of Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution says. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of liberty, life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws, which ultimately means that women do have have a fundamental right to choose. They have the fundamental right to decide and have complete control of what they can do with their body, uh, which means that that Roe v. Wade is completely constitutional under the law in the United States. Um, let's talk about what the conservative argument of Roe v. Wade is. As you may know, conservatives they're very pro-choice. They do not like it. They are solely they're almost against um, pro-choice. Being pro-choice, they're a lot more pro-life simply because they think uh, they they think um, uh, they think abortion is like they think because they think it's wrong just to kill a innocent human being that will that will never that will never have a chance to live their life. But while the liberal argument believes that pro-choice, saying that women do have a fundamental right to choose what they can do with their own body. And this is where I'm going to be going into some of the pros and cons of each. As you may know in the beginning of the video, the U.S. Supreme Court did declare that abortion is a fundamental right that's guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. It was a landmark case. Roe v. Wade was decided on January 22nd, 1973, in favor of abortion rights. That remains the law of the land. It was a 7-2 decision. And the negative of this decision is that this is what a lot of conservatives argue, is that abortion is murder because they're essentially killing an innocent human being, and they think is wrong, which I can understand because because I believe everyone should have, all human beings, whether when you're first born, they should all have a right to actually live life. Um, they this because I think the more people are created on Earth, they can actually become agents of change. They can help shape society of who they can help shape our society. They can bring new ideas that we may not have thought of. The next generation could have new innovative ideas that will ultimately make our country better for the better. But while liberals argue that reproductive choice empowers women by giving them control over their own bodies, um, their choice over when and whether to have children is essential to a woman's independence and ability to determine her future. And I think that's overall a good thing because that's the one reason why America is the land of the free, because it gives us the opportunity of what we can do. We have the freedom to create our own life. We have the freedom to write our own chapter, and we can pursue a life that we want to live in this country. But as well, conservatives argue life begins at conception, so unborn babies are human beings that have the right to life. Um, and they argue like upon fertilization, a human's individual is created with a human genetic identity that remains unchanged throughout his or her life. This individual has a fundamental right to life, that must be protected. But liberals argue that personhood begins after a fetus becomes viable, which is essentially after birth, not at conception, because they say embryos and fetuses are not independent, self-determined beings, and abortion is a termination of the pregnancy, not a baby. While conservatives counteract this argument, saying fetuses they say that fetuses feel pain during the abortion procedure. As well, liberals even argue that fetuses are incapable, which is another pro of abortion. Fetuses are incapable of feeling pain when most abortions are performed, while the con is abortion is the killing of human beings that defies like the word of God, which is essentially like a social conservative stance on abortion, because they're very religious. if you not that don't know. As well, and another pro is the access to legal professionally performed abortion reduces maternal injury and death caused by unsafe and illegal abortions. And while the con is the decision Roe v. Wade, many right wingers and conservatives think it was wrong and ultimately the decision should be overturned. But I don't think Roe v. Wade will ever be overturned at all. Well, but I will get to that to the end of this discussion video as well. Uh, Another with Roe v. Wade is that modern abortion procedures are safe and do not cause lasting health issues such as cancer and infertility. Um, and while the con is abortions cause psychological damage, simply because a peer-reviewed study published in the uh, Scandinavian Journal of Public Health found that young adult women who undergo abortion may be at increased risk for subsequent depression. And even as well, women who receive one of the pros behind Roe v. Wade, women who receive abortions are less likely to suffer mental health problems than women who are denied abortions. But the con is abortions reduce the number of adoptable babies, which I can understand that because some people in this country, some women can't even have pregnancy because there's something wrong with them, and they might have and they can't have children, and you're reducing the number of adoptable babies that they can adopt so they can have a child. Um, as well. And going back to women who that receive abortions less likely to suffer mental health problems. Like a review study comparing the mental health of women who received abortions, women found found that women who were denied abortion felt more regret and anger and less reliable in happiness than women who had abortions. The same study also found that 95% of women who received uh, abortions felt that it was the right decision a week after the procedure. Studies by American Psychological Association, the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, and researchers at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health all concluded that purported links between abortion and mental health problems are unfounded, which ultimately means there's really not that many problems um, with with uh, with abortion overall. As and even abortion. Another pro behind Roe v. Wade is that abortion gives pregnant women the option to choose not to bring fetuses with profound abnormalities to full term. Some fetuses have such severe disorders that death is guaranteed before or shortly after birth. These include I'm not sure how to pronounce this. I'm going to skip over that, but selective abortion based on genetic abnormal, and while the con is selective abortion based on genetic abnormalities is a termination is over discrimination, and as well another pro behind Roe v. Wade is women who are denied abortions are more likely to become unemployed, to be on public welfare to the below the poverty line, and to become victims of domestic violence. People who and another con is that who should women that should not be able to use abortion as a form of conception. It's back to this immorality thing that it's kind of they're conservatives that use the argument that it's unethical to kill an unborn child for convenience, but and that and since the because one institute reported that 45% of all women having abortions every year have had at least one previous abortion, while 8.6 of abortions were reported. As well, another advantage behind Roe v. Wade is reproductive choice protects women from financial disadvantage, which is obviously true. Many women who that choose abortion don't have the financial reason. They may not have the financial resources to support a child, and I have to overall agree with this. Um, it's you have to have the financial resources to support yourself. Taking care of a child is a lot of money. It's a lot. that it's a lot of work to actually afford. You have to, you have to pay for. You gotta feed them. You have to, yeah, as well. You have to pay money for them to go to school, and all sorts of things. It costs. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of finance, and some women might not have the financial disadvantages. They might not have the financial support to support themselves and to support that child, so they can have a great education and they can have a great lifestyle to help them shape. Uh, to help them become a great to help that child become a great person in life as well. If women do become pregnant, they should accept the responsibility that comes with producing a child, which I don't overall understand, because if you do, like, if you want to have a child, you should be responsible after when you produce that child, and and accept the action and accept the consequences of it. And that's the overall thing. I think that's the one thing that's lacking in our society, simply because I think we need to have more and more people just to accept responsibilities for their own actions and accept their consequences. And and to be honest, and that's the one thing why I agree with conservatives on this. Why I agree with conservatives sometimes on numerous issues, as well. A baby should not come into the world unwanted, and having a child is an important decision. That's what one of the advantages were. That requires consideration, preparation, and planning. And I overall agree. If you want to have a child, you have to have some preparation for it. You have to have plan, because once you have that baby, it's a lot of work to do. And uh, yeah, it's pretty much it's a lot of work to plan for, and once you do have the baby, it's a lot of work to take care of it and making sure it becomes a great person that can excellently that can be a great contributor to society, that can fundamentally reimagine the promise of America for decades to come. As well, the original one of the cons is this is going way back to uh, one of the original texts of the Hippocratic Oath, traditionally taken by doctors when swearing to practice medicine ethically, forbids abortion, which is pretty much saying one section of the classic version of the oath reads, "I will not give a woman perjury to cause an abortion." The modern version, it pretty much like forbids a doctor from performing abortion in the line. Above all, I must forbids a doctor from performing an abortion in in the line of the oath. Um, as as well, um, and as well, another pro behind Roe v. Wade is that it reduced the amount of crime. A crime reduces the amount of crime, and even but the negative behind this is that allowing abortion conflicts with the unalienable right to life that was recognized by the founding fathers of the United States in the Declaration of Independence, saying that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain and unalienable rights, and among these are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Um, and even like another positive of Roe v. Wade is that abortion is justified as a means of population control, which I understand, because overpopulation is always a bad thing, because we might not have the enough resources to provide homes for for more people. Because we have to provide the resources. I don't want to see like in my country. I don't want to say. It makes me feel very sad to see people living on the streets, because I don't want them to. I don't want them just to living on the streets. I don't want them to be. I don't want anyone being homeless in this country or in my home state of California, where homelessness is becoming a very big of an issue. I want them to be excellent contributors in life. I want them to give them the chance to uplift them out of poverty, and where they have the power to change our society, because everyone has ideas, everyone has a vision in life, what they want to do in our society. And I think that's um, and I believe why I kind of agree with this, because if we can control we can have population control, we can overall give more of a voice to all people, where they can have the freedom and the liberty to be agents of change in our country. As well, the negative behind abortion is disproportionately affects African American babies. For instance, in the United States, black women are 3.3 times as likely as white women to have an abortion, according to this institute. As well, another pro is that many religious organizations and people of faith support women's reproductive choice. Although many religious groups many religious groups, as you may know, oppose abortion. The negative behind this is that abortion eliminates the potential societal contributions of a future human being, which ultimately goes back to the idea that that the next generation might actually have ideas that we might not have ever thought of before. They might have new innovations that we might not have thought of, and they could actually come up with that to actually make our society better. They might bring new knowledges that we never thought of before, and that's the one good thing about the next generation. And that's why I agree with conservatives on this, because being pro-life is not necessarily always a bad thing, um, because you're it's a potential of societal contributions of future human beings and new people that will come into this world to change our society for the better, to bring their new ideas, to bring their new knowledges that we might not have thought of before, and they can help shape and build a country and reimagine the promise of our nation overall. That will ultimately create a government create a government that's truly by the people, of the people, and for the people. Um, as well the final negative behind abortion is that it may lead to future medical problems for a one mother. Since a study published by the peer-reviewed International Journal of Epidemiology estimated that about 15% of first trimester miscarriages are attributes to a prior history of induced abortion. But overall, since you may know, my overall opinion on Roe v. Wade, there's some areas where conservatives have the advantage on this issue, but there's also other areas that liberals have an advantage on this issue. For instance, when it comes to pro-choice, I believe it is. I believe, according to the 14th Amendment of the United States, that women do have a fundamental right to choose what they can do with their bodies. It gives them the right and the control of what they can do with it. But conservatives also have the advantage on this issue as well, because every human being has the right to life in this country. Even if it's a new human being, they have the right to life. And as well, they might bring in, so the next generation could have ideas of how they can make our country better. They they might have policies that we might not have ever thought of. They might have solutions to a lot of problems that we are and our seniors may have never thought of before. And I think that's the one good thing with being pro-life, and as well, but we also have to preserve the fundamental right and the equal rights that women have protected under the Constitution of the United States. But the only one thing I do not agree with when it comes to abortion is late-term abortion. Late-term abortion, which is the late termination of pregnancy, describes that termination of pregnancy by induced abortion during the last day of gestation. I don't agree with that, because this goes right back to the conservative argument again with being pro-life, that all human beings when it comes to all human beings have the right to life in this country, even if they're not unborn. And I agree with that. And if late term and if a woman that wants when it comes to late term abortions, that violates their right to life in this country. That's protected in the United States. That is deeply said in the United States Constitution. And it would make me kind of sad seeing a human being, seeing a unborn baby get an abortion because at a very late term. And that's the one thing. That's the one area why I agree with conservatives on this issue. But as well, not just because as well, when it comes to pro-choice, women do have a fundamental right. Have a fundamental right what they can do with their body overall, and as well, and even it can, as well as something can happen to the baby during a woman's pregnancy. A woman could be put in danger, and they might want to chew, and she should have that opportunity to get an abortion to save her own life, because the baby might have tremendous health issues during the stage of pregnancy of the woman. But let me hear you where you guys stand on this issue of Roe v. Wade. Do you agree with me? Do you agree do you agree with me overall that there is like a middle ground on this issue? Tell me your reasoning in the comment section below. But to finish things off, it's just because we have a 6-3 originalist majority on the Supreme Court, I don't think Roe v. Wade will be ever touched, because it's protected under the because it's based on the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Women do have a fundamental right to get an abortion. That's what the Supreme Court ruled, and I don't think it will ever be overturned whatsoever, just because we have a 6-3 originalist majority. But overall, don't forget to comment down below to share your reasoning on this issue, and where you stand on Roe v. Wade and abortion. Are you more pro-life on this issue, or are you more pro-choice on this issue? But don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, guys, this is the Young Centrist, and I am out.